Hey everyone, welcome back to the Law of Attraction Tribe podcast. I'm Stephanie Keith, and today I have my friend Tara Munjekovich back on the podcast for like what, the third, fourth, fifth time? I don't know. You're like a regular at this point.
Think it's third or fourth, yeah.
Okay, so today we're gonna get into our journey getting on like this holistic path and like this whole mind-body connection. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, we really need to start at the beginning where you and I started when we first connected because you just have the most incredible story of what happened. And for me, like witnessing this, it really proved that whole mind body connection, just how powerful it is. So, why don't you just kind of walk everyone through what happened when you had this health scare kind of out of the blue?
Okay. Yeah, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago that I was first on your podcast, and we were talking about my experience of being diagnosed with a brain aneurysm. And at the time, I'd been suffering from these like persistent, debilitating headaches for years, and they were just getting progressively worse. And it got to the point where none of the usual pharmaceuticals that I had been prescribed were working anymore. And I was constantly on antibiotics and prednisone, and they just kept having to increase the dosage every time. And I just felt like I was on the brink of like a physical and mental health crisis because it was so consistent. And I spent several months going through all of these different testing procedures, seeing specialists. They thought, oh, it must be sinus related or migraines. But all the tests came back, negative for any of those things. And eventually the doctor was like, okay, let's do a brain CT scan and see what we find. And when I did, I remember sitting in the waiting room for like hours. And I'm watching all these different doctors go in and out of the radiology room. And I basically shut down the clinic because, or the doctor's office, because I was the last person in there. And finally, my doctor comes out and says, they thought I have a brain aneurysm and they want me to come back and do another test. And of course, there was that part of me that just wanted to like spiral into fear and worry when she told me that. But at the time, and I think this is where you and I had initially connected because I was already, into the world of manifestation, and I had started reading a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, and I was practicing daily gratitude. And when I got that diagnosis, it was so weird because I felt oddly calm about everything. And it was just so strange because it was this sudden shift of like releasing the worry and the fear. And I just spent the next couple days telling myself I was going to be fine. And I went into that second CT scan. And
Wait,
I think I,
before you get into the second scan, I just have to give a quick, like from my perspective, it was wild because it was on a video call and you're telling me this and you say brain aneurysm and I'm like thinking in my head, oh shit, like this is life threatening. And you absolutely were completely calm and you were even like smiling and you were like, I can't explain it. I just know that I'm going to be okay and I'm choosing to stay in this place of gratitude. And I was like, what? Like, why isn't she freaking out more? And of course, I didn't want to say that, but I was just like panicking a little bit on my end. And I just couldn't believe how, I mean, you were 100% in this like very neutral, calm, like I'm letting it go state. And then you didn't show up on the next call. And I was like, oh shit. Like, what happened? Is she still with us? Like, oh my gosh. So you went into your next scan.
yeah, and I just want to speak a little bit to what you just said because that was unusual for me because I had just had this history in my life of constantly getting sinus infections, being ill, and going down this path of like, oh no, it's going to be, worse this time than last time. So having that strange sense of calm was something very different for me. And before going into that second scan, I think it was 2 days that I had to wait between the scans. And I just kept telling myself, I am safe, I'm healthy, and everything's going to be okay. And I believed it. And so I went into that scan and I remember lying in the machine and just repeating these phrases to myself in my head over and over again and just feeling very peaceful. And then that scan came back clear with no brain aneurysm. And to this day, like, I don't know, did I manifest that outcome or was the first scan wrong? But honestly, like, it doesn't matter because what matters is that that was the first time in my life that I felt that sense of deep calm and control in regard to my health. And it was such a powerful feeling to feel that I was in control of my health.
Yeah. I mean, that was just so crazy because, you say this thing and then you don't show up on the next call and like everyone's freaking out and thinking, "Oh my God, like it was a brain aneurysm," you know?
Yeah.
And I remember messaging you and just the sense of like dread I had, like, okay, like please respond. And you were just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like I totally forgot about the call. And it was like such a relief. And then when you explained that and how perplexed the doctors were, like,
Mhm.
because there was some, I mean, there were multiple doctors that looked at that
Yes.
first scan and, all of a sudden it's gone. It's like, just like you said, who cares what exactly happened? The fact is, it changed. Like, you probably shifted timelines, but who knows? Like, maybe it was an error. It doesn't matter. You could have gone down this road of like freaking out and letting it consume you and focusing on the worst case scenario. And had you have done that, I mean, who knows? We don't know, but maybe it would have been a different path. Um, but for me, like that just it really left an impression on me because I thought, okay, if someone is in this situation where they could literally die, I mean, you're getting like this horrible news and you can still get into this place of complete gratitude and just focusing on the outcome you want and just being in this neutral calm space, then can't I do the same in like any situation? I mean, you were up against like the worst news someone can get and you still chose to remain calm.
And that was the first time I did that with my health because like I said, I'd been into manifestation for a while at that point, but I never focused my manifestations on my health because I just didn't make that connection that I could.
Yeah.
And then in this situation, I felt like I did.
Yeah, and that actually, I think that was when I started doing more gratitude around my health because, and I think this is common until you reach a certain age, you kind of take it for granted. Like, oh, I'm fine, like I'm healthy right now, and you don't really think about it until you're sick or something
Right.
happens. But man, I really started thinking about it, and I think that's when I really started like giving gratitude, like that I'm healthy and everything's functioning because it's like at any point in time, you never know what's going to come up. So don't take it for granted. But I mean, to this day, of all of the stories that I have received, that one, I mean, it's at the tippy top. Like, that was just so crazy. And it never came back. Like, you never had another scan that showed anything there. Like, it left and it's gone.
Yeah, and like I said, I've had a history of headaches, and I later was diagnosed with cluster headaches, but I had never experienced anything like that. I think it was almost 3 months of a consistent, debilitating pain.
Yeah.
And for it to just literally vanish within a couple days was just so surreal.
Well, and it proves this whole mind body connection. Like, we know there's this connection. Science confirms that there's a connection, but that really paints the picture of just how powerful it is and
Mhm.
how there's so much to it that we still don't fully understand, but you really can like shift things in your body with your mindset and you can shift things in your mind with your body as well. Like it all, you have to take care of the full picture, all of it. Your energy, your mindset, and what's going on physically. And I think the other part of this, because you and I got really close, and a lot of the things that we had in common was that we both sort of, I feel like we went through this kind of like awakening, for like lack of a better word, at the same time. We kind of like went down this path um, of getting super into manifestation and everything like that, but also just waking up to all of the like corruption just in every aspect of our society. And thank God I had you to talk to and like just get it all out, because it's like you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose when you
Yes.
wake up to this stuff, and it's everywhere. I mean, we did so much in-depth research on everything from the healthcare industry to the food industry to education to government to corporate America. And it's like, holy shit, like everything I thought I knew and everything I trusted kind of crumbled. And it was kind of hard to see the truth behind all of these things, but I think it's this whole process of like you've got to see that so that we could get to this place where we're like, you know what? We're going to choose different. And I think I told you at one point, like I just reached like this burnout where I'm like, I just can't talk about it anymore. Like I'm just in this pissed off mindset. It's really affecting me. And I said, I'm in the stage of like awakening where I want to just buy land and get chickens and homeschool my kids and have a home apothecary. And you were like, well, that's interesting because I just bought this book and I'm doing a home apothecary. And I was like, that's the book I'm looking at. And we were like, okay, we're at the same stage again. But it's like it came full circle where you just reach a point where you're like, all right, there is a lot of corruption, and honestly, that may never change.
Mhm.
However, we don't have to like play into that anymore. We can create, it's so cheesy, but it's like we can create the change we want to see in the world. But like, really, it all starts with you. And I think that was finally the point that I got to. Like, I can't keep trying to change everyone else. I have to change myself.
Right. I totally agree with you. And I think for me, I had the very unique experience of moving to Europe for 2 years. And it was, that was kind of like the next evolution of my self-empowerment journey with deep diving into holistic health because we had moved there in October of 2023 for my husband's job. And that's kind of like when things really shifted for me because I was introduced to a totally different way of life. The food, the pace of life, the environment, everything was different. And I immediately felt that in my body. And you and I were talking so much during this time because while I was living in Europe, it was, we were having like the lead up to the 2024 elections here in the States, and the Maha movement was gaining traction. And it started bringing a lot of attention to all of these terrible things about our food supply and pharmaceuticals and everything else. And I just like, I have to throw in a couple like facts here because it was mind blowing to me that I didn't pay attention to most of this until I was away from it. And our US food supply, even still, even with the changes that RFKJ has made in our healthcare system or is trying to make, our food supply is so overloaded with harmful additives. There are more than 10,000 different chemicals allowed in our food here in the US, but in Europe, there's only I think like 338 approved additives. 10,000 versus 300 and less than 40, right?
Mhm.
And then we have like US farmers using at least 72 different pesticides that are banned in the European Union. And, again, like fortunately, we're starting to see some positive changes here, but we have such a long way to go. And I'm not going to go down the whole rabbit hole of this, but my point is when I was living in Europe, the regulations there, like they drive a totally different baseline of what people are exposed to. So you've got less additives, stricter chemical safety, and more mindful and natural food systems. And prior to moving there was when I had, like I said, with these headaches, I'd had headaches for a very long time. And I was diagnosed with cluster headaches, I think like 3 weeks before we moved to Europe. And I didn't want to take medication for it because at that point I was going down this holistic path and I'm like, I don't want to take meds. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I had this worry of, okay, I'm not going to have the same medical insurance. I'm not going to be able to have access to what I would in the United States. But the fascinating thing for me was I started realizing while living there, I wasn't having the sinus infections. I wasn't getting the headaches. I think in the 2 years that I lived there, I had a headache twice, twice. And as my body was adjusting to cleaner, less processed, more natural foods and a different way of life where it wasn't the same chaos and craziness as, most people's schedules in the US, it was this insane shift where I started to trust my body more. I started to have faith in my natural healing abilities again. And it was just like a total game changer on every level.
And it was so cool for me because I would be like, go check like the nutrition label at the store on like M&Ms. And like we found out that like the dyes are completely different there. It's
Yeah.
like beet juice and like here it's, red dye 40 and stuff like that. And it made me really mad because I'm like, these companies are already making the healthier option for Europe, but
Yeah.
we're stuck with the shit here that's like causes all kinds of disease. And at the time, my oldest daughter had leaky gut, which just figuring that out, we had to go do our own research. We ended up at a functional doctor because all the regular doctors, like they were sending us to gastrosurgeons and all kinds of stuff. No one could give us an answer on what was going on. It was a functional doctor that ended up diagnosing it as leaky gut and treating it. And one of the things he did was he said no wheat and no sugar for 30 days. You got to like clear out your system. And I remember at the time, like you're overseas, and you're like, yeah, kids here are like walking down the street, like just eating an entire loaf of bread. Like that's like their
Yep.
snack. But the bread doesn't have all of the stuff in it, the chemicals and the pesticides and everything that we have here, so you can eat it and you don't feel bad. You don't feel sick. You don't feel bloated. And that was just mind blowing to me, just seeing the differences in that.
I remember being so surprised because things like yogurt or cottage cheese, apples, things that in the US typically have a somewhat stable shelf life. Like you could leave yogurt in the refrigerator for almost a month and it's still like the due date is fine. That wasn't the case in Europe. It was like you had a week to eat it
Yeah.
and people didn't grocery shop, on Saturday or Sunday for an entire week's worth of food. You went to the local little grocer on the corner because every neighborhood had one within like a 3 block radius, and you bought fresh food on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
and that was totally different too because I had never experienced that.
Yeah. Well, just off the subject for a minute, you got to tell them about the other thing with like the babies and their carriages because this is just like so funny to me, but just again the difference between there and here.
It was so shocking to me because people just leave their babies in the strollers or the carriages outside the
Outside.
store, outside, and they go in and shop and they leave their baby unattended in front of the store and it's normal and nobody comes and tries to steal your kid and like the I don't think anyone would even think of that there. And
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my God, how could you leave your kid outside by itself? That would be a crime here."
Right.
And
And
it
it
was
was
just
so
normal.
cold there, but it's
Yes.
like they believe like that's good for you, the cold
Yes.
and the fresh air. Yeah.
Mhm.
Could you
Yeah.
imagine here, like you would have child services take your kid away, you know?
Yeah. But you know what I didn't see there? I didn't see a lot of overweight, unhealthy kids
Yeah.
because they were all have from a young age this natural resistance from their environment and eating healthy foods. And like I said, it was so eye-opening for me. And I was so fearful of coming back to the United States because I didn't want to be reintroduced to our food system and way of life here.
Okay, so how do you feel now that you're back? Because you were feeling so good there. And I remember you saying you were afraid of that. Has anything changed? Like, do you feel worse or are you just eating better? Like, what's going on since you're back?
I am eating better. And what happened when I came back is I decided I was just going to totally deep dive into holistic health. So I took a ton of courses in the first few months that I got back here. I got certified in like holistic health practitioner and naturopathic healing. And I even went down this like animal holistic communications course. And I feel like this by no means makes me an expert in anything, even though I have these certifications. But what it did was it expanded my knowledge base and it gave me this sense of empowerment and even more control over my own health. I really try to stay away from processed foods. I mean, processed you can't really avoid. I try to stay away from ultra processed foods. I cook pretty much 90% of our meals now. We don't really go out to eat very often. And when we do, I do allow myself to enjoy it. But everything I make is with whole natural foods. I don't trust organic to be organic here, really, because we've talked about that in the past, that that's a lie. Um, a knock on wood, so far, I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm trying to stay away from, and I'm not saying all conventional medicine is bad because I don't believe that. And I believe there is a place for conventional medicine. And I believe there, are times when you do need it. But I also believe now that you really can have this sense of control over your own health. All the remedies I'm doing, everything is like the home apothecary stuff and the recipes I use. And it's so fascinating to me because aside from you, there's another one of my friends who's done the same thing. And she has two young girls and she's completely changed their diets and the way that they eat, which has impacted not only their health, but how they are responding in school and how they're learning. And it's like the connections between health and every other aspect of your life. I don't think people realize how extensive it is.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, my daughter with the whole leaky gut thing, it's like in a way, I'm almost glad that happened because it opened up our eyes to how your body will repair itself if you
Mhm.
quit feeding it shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like you have to be on this strict diet all the time or anything like that, but it's more being mindful. So she noticed such a drastic difference in the way she felt. And mind you, this functional doctor, there was no prescriptions or surgeries or anything like that. This was all like a natural approach and taking out a lot of the processed stuff that she was eating. And she felt so much better that after that point, like she has it so dialed in where she could look at any type of food and immediately know that's going to make me feel horrible or put me in pain.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to eat that anymore. And just recently, like she was having some skin issues, and right away she's like, my gut's out of balance. So I've got to like get the probiotic and I've got to, and like she knows exactly what to do to keep her body into balance. And it is pretty remarkable when you witness that and experience it because you realize, like, I don't have to go down this path of just putting a band-aid on my symptoms in order to feel better. I can fix the issue just by bringing my body back into balance, like doing a reset basically. And that's what she did. And we've seen how powerful that is. And so it's just like I feel like it's empowered our whole family now to look at that and take that route first
Yeah.
before anything else.
And I think what's really cool about all of this is, okay, we've started putting better food in our bodies now, right? And we're seeing that difference in our gut health. And the gut brain connection is huge, right? But there's so much more to it because it's not just what we eat, it's what we do. And I think that's where there's this incredibly powerful link between holistic health and manifestation. And the best way for me to explain how it's impacted me is manifestation like shifts your mindset, right? And it kind of gives you the mental and emotional side of feeling self-empowered. And especially what I went through with the brain aneurysm diagnosis. It gave me the belief that my mindset can shape my reality in pretty much anything. But now that I've been practicing holistic health, it's also shifting my physiology because I'm regulating my nervous system, I'm supporting my hormones. And for me, another huge thing was I'm going through perimenopause right now, and I did not want to get on hormone therapy. And I know that it's great for a lot of women and it's completely life changing for them and helps them stabilize. I personally don't want to do that. I want to do this as naturally as possible. And that was another reason I started deep diving into holistic practices because I want to support my body in the most natural way. And it's changed how I feel about myself in such a positive way. And so I think when you bring the mind and body together, manifestation and physiology, it kind of, for me, it's given me this sense of agency and ownership over not only how I feel, but how I think and how I respond to things in my life. Because I'm not just thinking positive or, trying to feel better. It's combining everything to embody change, which you can speak better to this than I can, but I feel like this helps you match the frequency of what you want and like how you show up in your body every day. And then like that just expands your self-empowerment like tenfold.
Yeah, and I think you have to tune into that. Like your decision to stay away from hormone therapy is your decision. Like you should trust that. Trust what your intuition is telling you and not necessarily jump into something just because, a doctor is recommending it. And I think that's the biggest wake-up call. It's not saying like, oh, don't ever go to a doctor. It's saying do your own research and become your own advocate because no one's coming to save you. No one's going to care about your body the way that you do. No one's going to care about your mindset the way that you do. And I think that's just really important for us to realize like how we have to look at our lives and empower ourselves to do what's best for us and not just blindly accept something because the masses are telling you to accept it, I mean, look at another stat. The US spends more on healthcare per person than any other country in the world.
Yeah.
Yet we rank below 30 in life expectancy, below 30th position. Like that's insane. So yet like we're going to keep listening to the same advice that's keeping everybody incredibly sick. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And I want to quickly touch on you had talked about the Maha movement earlier
Mhm.
and the food additives and all that. And something that I don't want to be like cynical, but I do feel like I have the experience to talk about this. But recently, my daughter was telling me that one of the big like chip companies had announced, okay, we're getting rid of like the red dye 40 and like all that stuff and we're going to put in like natural ingredients and get rid of like all these additives. And as soon as she said it, I was like, bullshit. I call bullshit. And here's why. And this is why I want to bring it up because I don't want people to think like, oh, they said they changed it and it's more natural, so I can trust it. It's such a it's such a scam. Like I used to work for the beverage industry and you slap a label on there that can say organic, it could say natural, it could say health food, and those are typically like the worst. They're loaded with stuff that's bad for you. And back when I worked for a beverage company, this was when Obama was president and Michelle Obama, like her big thing was healthier school lunches. And I was all for that. I'm like, yeah, there should be healthier school lunches. Absolutely. Well, my big job that I was assigned was going to all these school districts and talking to them about this plan that all the beverage companies, all these competitive companies, they all got together and they said, you know what? We need to work together and show the government that we're being proactive so they don't try to regulate us. Because the last thing we want is for them to like ban stuff and regulate us. So we just need to like show them that we're doing something. So that was the big initiative, like get soda out of schools and put in like other drinks. And I was looking at the labels. I'm like, these other drinks are like, you might as well give them the soda. Like, this has more sugar, but it's got dyes in it. It's got da 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 da, all this stuff in it, but it has a healthy label on it. And they were like, it doesn't matter as long as it seems like we're doing something and it seems healthier. That's what we're doing. And it was just so shady because everyone knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't really making things healthier in school cafeterias. They were just giving the image of it being healthier. So again, like you have to be your own advocate and doing your own research with everything, not just food or medication, but like literally everything. Just trust your own instincts, your own intuition, and don't blindly go along with something because a company told you to, or the government told you to, or a doctor told you to. Like that was my big takeaway from all the research we've done.
I've got to comment on something on that because being like into, a healthy lifestyle or what I thought was a healthy lifestyle prior, and I'm big into working out and I lift weights 5 times a week. And I used to eat a lot of protein bars because they were advertised as healthy, right? And when I started like going down this rabbit hole, and I kind of came to the conclusion of just eat real food, eat real ingredients. If I look at the label and I can't pronounce what's on the label or I don't know what it is, I'm not eating it because it's shit, right?
Yeah.
And I started looking at all of these different protein bar labels, and I only found like two or three out of dozens and dozens that are just made of whole natural foods.
Hmm.
And most of them are complete crap, but they're labeled as healthy because they have 9 to 15 grams of protein or whatever, or 20 grams of protein. But you're getting all the other junk in there that negates any health benefits that you're getting from the protein. So now I just make my own, right? With
Right.
simple ingredients and make it myself. And I've seen a huge difference, even just doing small things like that.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't think it's like this all or nothing. I think you have to start out doing your own research, number one, and number two, just making very small changes because you try and change everything at once
Mhm.
and it doesn't work. I mean, that's why New Year's resolutions fail. It's too much and it puts more stress on your system when you're trying to completely change something. And that is like such a big root cause of everything, of all these like anything from not being able to manifest to disease to feeling, down on yourself can be linked back to like obviously the gut and chronic stress. There is a statistic that 70 to 90% of chronic illness is influenced by lifestyle and stress.
Mhm.
So you change those two things and your whole life changes. But in my experience, and I mean, I just look at the way the world is, especially with New Year's resolutions, you have to do it incrementally. You try to change everything and you're kind of like setting yourself up for this unrealistic expectation. Um, so let's talk a little bit about the stress component because, we kind of went into depth about like the body and the food system and all of this. But I think the other thing, and especially when it comes to manifesting, is your nervous system is dysregulated. It's just completely out of whack. And I would venture to say that pretty much everyone that is participating in normal society has a dysregulated nervous system unless you've learned how to regulate it and reset it. And I believe that there's a lot of things in play, but I think the way our society is set up with this whole hustle culture and really glorifying stress and hard work and the whole like 9 to 5 culture in our workforce has gotten people completely stuck in survival mode
Yeah.
and like fight or flight in this constant stress. And this affects everything, your sleep, your digestion, your immune system, your mood, like you name it. Dysregulated nervous system is going to have a ripple effect on every area of your life. And when you're in a state of stress and overwhelmed and you're in survival mode, you're manifesting on that frequency. It doesn't matter what you say if you feel completely overwhelmed, you're going to manifest more overwhelm. If you feel stressed, you're going to manifest more stress. And so that's been a big wake up call for me over the last year or so is really focusing on the nervous system. And if you do that, it's going to shift your energetic vibration so that you can
But
manifest better.
I think that's where a lot of people struggle because, they'll practices like meditation and mindfulness. There's like a concept that these things take time, right? You need to, have
Yeah,
a lengthy morning routine and spend 30 minutes meditating and then journal and then sit in nature. And honestly, most people don't have time for that, right?
right.
And I think that that almost creates more stress because you feel like you should be doing all of these things that you don't really have time to do. And that just adds to the nervous system dysregulation.
Yeah. Well, and we do that with everything. It's like, yeah, we should move our body, but then in our society, it's like you have to work out every single day or you're freaking lazy? And it's like, I have to be more mindful. Well, you're not meditating for 1 hour on the top of a mountain. So,
Right.
you don't know what you're doing and like you're not spiritual. It's like we just put these crazy expectations on ourselves
Yeah.
based on, some image in our mind, I guess. But again, it's like it doesn't have to be that way. You can make these super subtle shifts that have a big ripple effect. And I
Mhm.
think the more ease that you implement it and like the small little increments, that is going to last longer than trying to change everything all at once and completely like cut out sugar or like do this like when we did 75 hard, like that was
Yes.
insane. It's
Mhm.
like that doesn't work for most people. I know it doesn't work for me. And so you got to try a different approach. And like, what do you have to lose? You know, you make some small shifts, and if it doesn't change anything, it doesn't change anything. But that's where you and I have really compared notes and realized like there's a lot of very simple things we can do, and we've experimented with them. to
Yep.
see what works best for me, what works best for you. And some things you like better and some things I like better. But at the end of the day, again, you have to draw your own conclusions. You can't
Yeah.
just like do something because someone told you this would be good. I think you should research and test things out and draw your own conclusion from it. And so that's where we just kind of had that like aha moment where it's like, okay, let's put this together and create our own experiment, but like not some crazy experiment. It's like literally, you know, 5 to 15 minutes a day
Mhm.
that we set up different changes to test out and see, okay, let's try this and see how we feel. Does it work or does it not work? Is this a real thing or is this just like hype? And what you and I found is that like actually a lot of these things do work very well and they're like so subtle. It's like the easiest little change to implement, and for me that works better than anything I've tried in the past, like these
Yeah.
insane, restrictive diets and stressful workouts and all the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I remember, God, one year, I think I did 75 hard. And at the same time, I was also doing this full-on program of the meditation and the journaling and the clean eating. And it was so overwhelming that I woke up every morning just feeling stressed because I knew I had to complete all these things. And the holidays are coming up, the new year is coming up, and we just wanted to create something simple and easy and in alignment with what most of you guys are interested in with manifestation. And there is so much research, neurobiological studies, all of these research that supports the idea of how mind body practices can change how we think and how we respond internally. And they can improve our ability to self regulate and give us emotional balance and mental flexibility and clarity. And at the same time, they help enhance self awareness and stabilize our mood. And they make us more resilient and less reactive in the face of stress. And you can do this with very simple 5-minute practices instead of dedicating an hour and a half to, trying to get into this mindset. And the cool thing is that, like, all of this, all these little practices, it's mind body work that helps make our energy more aligned and like strengthens our ability to follow through with being intentional. And that all relates to how we want to manifest things.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing when I went through it. I'm like, really? At the end of the day, this reset my vibration.
Hmm.
And everything you manifest is based on your vibration. And your vibration, what goes into that, like the way you feel, your body, your mind, like your energy, everything goes into creating this like average vibration. And that's what you are aligning yourself with. And the way that we set it up, it's like a complete reset because you cover every system in the body and every aspect of your mindset, but also like some spiritual stuff. And the other thing is that we really researched this. Everything's backed by scientific evidence. So, like, for example, deep breathing can reduce cortisol by up to 30% in just minutes. And if
Yeah.
cortisol, this stress hormone, affects every aspect of your life, like, well, yeah, then maybe we should try some deep breathing. Or like cold exposure can increase dopamine by up to 250%, and it can last for hours. And it's like, why doesn't everyone know this? If it has that much of a measurable effect, we all should at least be trying it. Not saying you have to do this every single day, all day, but we should at least try it and see for ourselves what kind of an impact it's having on our life. And that's kind of the whole point is just to try these things out and see what works for you.
Yeah, and we also wanted to kind of bring attention to the fact that, everyone talks about the mind-body connection, the mind-body connection. But what is the body component of the mind-body connection, right? And when Stephanie just mentioned how we go into different body systems, I think that was so fascinating for me because, yes, you know that your respiratory system does XYZ or that your digestive system does XYZ. But when you deep dive into how each system functions both independently and together, and how these practices impact the effectiveness of how your body functions, it's really cool because you start to see why doing certain exercises causes a shift. And it's not just here, do this, and then this will be the result, but you're actually learning why.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because as we were putting this together, I was like, man, so many of these things are things that our ancestors did. These were
Hmm.
things that people did for thousands of years and it worked great. And it's really over the last 50 to 100 years that we just decided like we shouldn't do that anymore. We should
Yeah.
instead like medicate or whatever. And I'm just like it's just so eye-opening, but it works and it's
Yeah.
very measurable. And so that's the format, okay? So this is a 14-day experiment where we give you different options to try and you record it. You just simply try it. It takes like 5 minutes, 15 minutes at most. You record it and then you draw your own hypothesis of like, okay, I did this and this is how I felt. This is how it impacted my day. And from there, you decide like what works, what doesn't, but at least you've tried the different things and you can see for yourself the measurable impact it had on you physically, mentally, emotionally. And, at the end of the day, like it leaves you feeling very regulated and it balances out your vibration. It's like resetting everything in fourteen days. So like those 14 days end up shifting you more than the last 14 months because you're just targeting these different areas with things that are super simple. So it's not like deprivation. It's not an insane workout. It's not adding any extra pressure or stress. It's doing the opposite. It's like helping you release and ease the stress and the tension in your body and in your mind. And I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, because it's not like, your typical New Year's challenge or anything like that. It's literally experiments that help you figure out what works best for you personally. And so I think to me, that's where the cool part comes in because it's you're tailoring it to your own body and your own mind and then putting it all together and seeing what works for you instead of following a rigid, you're going to do these 7 steps for the next 14 days. We're going to try these different experiments and see how you respond to it. And then you build off of those.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very easy to follow. Um, I am going to put the link in the show notes for anyone that's interested in it. But the other thing I want to point out is you can do this as like your New Year's thing, but it doesn't have to be a New Year's thing. Like I went through it obviously already, but I would recommend starting in December. I think December, as joyous as it can be with the holidays, it is also a very stressful time.
Yeah.
There's just a lot going on with getting ready for the holidays and holiday parties, and just I think a reset is definitely something that everyone can benefit from. And then you're going into the new year with like a clean slate. You're more balanced because the worst thing you can do for manifestation is go into the new year and you're like, yeah, I'm going to like write all my goals and set my intentions. But you're in this very dysregulated, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed state because that is the energy you're going to manifest. So before you do that, like clean the slate, reset it, come back into balance. And when you do that, you're so much more clear headed. And it's like you have so much more clarity. And you get these downloads of like what I need to do and where I'm headed because it's kind of removes like the brain fog and everything else. And you just feel more focused. So I would recommend starting it now. And then you can do whatever you want to do for the new year. But first, just get back to a good, solid baseline.
Yeah, agree.
So, yep, try it out. It's 14 days. Again, each day you're 5 minutes to 15 minutes at most. It's something you don't need like equipment for or anything like that. I mean, it's just um, little micro changes that have a huge impact on your overall energetic vibration. So I'll link it in the show notes.
And there's a journal that comes with it as well that like gives you the prompts for the questions to answer. So you don't even have to put a bunch of extra thought into it because we're basically giving you everything you need.
Yeah, and I should point out the first week, Tara goes like in depth of all the different like body systems and how to reset those. The second week is more mindset and manifestation, but we end with intention setting and visualization because I know everybody wants that at the beginning of the year. It's like you're in that mode. So it is in there, but it's at the very end because, again, before we can do that, you've got to first get yourself into a really good energetic vibration. And then that part is so much more fun because you're in a better place. If your vibration feels good, you're going to manifest more good. So it's very intentional in the way it's set up.
Yeah, because when your mind and your body are on the same page or like the same team, that's when everything flows easier and you become like a different kind of magnet for the things you want. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, you manifest. I don't want to say effortlessly because it's like there's always some type of action involved, but it just feels good. It feels easy. It feels fun. You naturally are guided to whatever action you're going to take or whatever path you're going to go down. And you do it because you want to do it. It's not this place of I'm going to force it and I'm going to work really hard and stress myself out. It's just this you flow, like you're in this state of flow. And yeah, I think everyone should try it. I'm obsessed with it.
Mhm.
You're obsessed with it. We both
Yeah.
just it's been a few years to get to this point, but I feel like we've really pinpointed the different things that can work and that everyone should at least try so you can, be empowered and get control over, your life and your health and your mindset. And in order to do that, you just got to start from a clean slate, reset everything, and go from there. So thanks, Tara, for coming on again and
Thank you for
sharing
having
your
me.
story. And again, I will link everything in the show notes. Reach out if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next episode.